Well, speaking of rights, Miracle, Trump talked about him restoring free speech only hours after he is attempting to silence free speech. Can you play that clip, Farouk?
Government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back.
If you're the right color.
Well, again, I think and the reason we're saying this is because earlier that day, on his Truth Social account, Donald Trump wrote this: all federal funding will stop. So remember, he said no more governments.
I mean,
all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on your crime, arrested. No mass. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, in one hand says, there is no free speech. You're not allowed to protest, regardless of what it is. If you protest, you'll be immediately expelled or arrested, and no mass. And then he said he brought back free speech.
It was interesting because, when I was watching this last night, I made a clip about it. I was like, I know this sounds familiar. And it reminded me of Revenge of the Sith, when Padme's in the hall and the Emperor Palpatine is talking. And she's like, this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause.
Yeah.
And, this was just, people were clapping of every time he mentioned someone in the audience, or taking away trans rights, taking away, blocking all these different tariffs, or creating all these different tariffs and blocking all these liberties. People were just applauding for Americans' rights to have democracy, a democratic process, be represented in the halls that they vote for, stripped away from them. And you had the perfect example, like Miracle said, highlighted. You had these weak, spineless Democrats sitting down, showing, just cowardice by their little fans, and then the Republicans giving a standing ovation every time Trump uttered a sentence, applauding for everything that they seen that they wanted to come true. They literally got everything they wanted on their Christmas list. So why wouldn't they be happy?
So I have a question. I have a couple of questions.
I have a question too, but you go.
My first question is, if we have a First Amendment right to protest and to petition our government when we feel like they're doing wrong, what would deem protest illegal at a college institution?
So the same way that there were protest zones that were indicated in Pittsburgh when the protests were happening, areas that you were not allowed to protest in, right? They can enforce the same things.
Okay, so then that brings me to question number 2, which is, why pardon January 6ers for going into the Capitol building ready to tie up your vice president and kill people with masks, but now you're saying that anyone who protests on a college, that college will lose funding completely?
Well, I'm going to say, Trouble, that's one of those rhetoric. You know the answer.
Yeah, I was saying, come on. You know what I mean?
You know.
And
who's protesting?
Who was it that called January 6th a legitimate political discourse?
One of them Republicans, you know what I'm saying?
And that's why, because they legitimized
and because
all of this right-wing activity, all this heresy.
And really it's because, they're on Donald Trump's job. Like they did that for Donald Trump. Yeah. So anything you do for, again, this is a man who put out on his own Truth Social that he was a king. He's loving Putin. He loves the dude in I forget the other he's like one of these strong men. He loves the dude in North Korea. He loves I think it's Hungary, the guy who's in charge of Hungary. He loves all these he wants to be a dictator. So to Donald Trump, what is legitimate free speech is, are they, for lack of a better word, are they sucking my dick? Yes. Are they against me? That's a crime. Because this is how dictatorships work. This is how the role. So in the college protests were, and most of them were highlighting what was happening in Gaza, in the Middle East, and he doesn't want that. So it's no, you're not going to have that. So that's really where it is. It's the hypocrisy is so crazy that it's like, oh, okay, you know, but his folks will just clap. It's a, you know, when they say like it's a cult, bro.
Yeah.
Anything this man says is a cult.